Over the past several weeks, we've been talking about faith is the victory. And of course, we have noted that based on 1 John chapter 5, beginning there in verse 4, where it says, "For whatever is born of God overcomes the world. And this is the victory that has overcome the world, our faith." Who is the one who overcomes the world but he who believes that Jesus is the Son of God? And it is within the context of our proclamation of faith that Jesus is the Son of God is the key for us overcoming the things in this world. And that is what we proclaim. That Jesus is the Son of God and that we believe in Him. And that through Him that we are those who are truly overcomers. Now in our lesson last Lord's Day morning, we talked about anxiety. And folks, I understand about anxiety. I have some anxiety on different levels, different things that I get real anxious about. And I don't know why, but I do. But yet when we look at the situation across the world, so many people are struggling with anxiety, with difficulties. But we noted that this problem, the majority of it can be overcome if we just give it to Jesus. This morning, I want us to talk about another problem that people face in our world, and that is boredom. Now, where anxiety is a state of uneasiness and apprehension, boredom is a condition of mental weariness, listlessness, discontent. Anxiety is often cause of thinking we have too much to do or too little time. Boredom results in thinking that there's nothing to do. Anxiety is more often a difficulty that adults face, whereas boredom seems to be, in our world today, the complaint of children. Now, when I was thinking about this lesson, and understanding that it is a problem in our society, and it's a problem that through faith that we can overcome, and our young people can overcome boredom. But I got to contemplating in my own mind, when have I ever in my life been bored? And I'll be honest with you, I can't think of a time in my life personally that I've been bored. Because there's always something for me to do, or 6 or 8 things that I'm supposed to be doing, even as a young person. I don't remember having times of boredom. There was always things that had to be done, that needed to be done, and you did not ever go and tell your parents that you were bored. When I was growing up at my house, because if you said, "Oh, I'm bored," they'd give you something to do. And if you didn't want to do anything, you didn't say that. But the reality is this, folks. It's not from the way that I lived my life, my youth, but it's the situation that we see and we're struggling with today. Now, I tell you, I deal with some anxiety, and everybody here knows that. MRI machines are not my friend. Don't like them. Why, I don't know, but I don't like them. They tried to do that, and it didn't work out. And there's other aspects that gives me anxiety, terrible anxiety. But boredom is a struggle that so many of our young people have today. Now, boredom as defined by the American Heritage Dictionary is more seriously, boredom is a condition of mental weariness, listlessness, and discontent. It is noted that this word did not even enter the English vocabulary until the Enlightenment of the 18th century, beginning the modern era. In other words, this is something new. Now, we think about boredom. And I read an illustration concerning this from a cartoon of Garfield the cat, and how he was a self-proclaimed boredom expert. And this is where you paint little faces on your fingers and you pretend that each finger is a person. Or you get so involved that you watch bread mold. Or you braid your eyebrows. Or maybe you watch a 3-hour documentary on sewage treatment. Now, I might do that, but I'm not bored doing it. It's for educational purposes. Or maybe you start playing the spoons. Whatever it may be. You wonder if you're really, really bored. Now, it is noted that boredom is caused by too much prosperity and too much time on our hands. And I think the second one of those is applicable more than probably the first. We think about this coming into vogue in the 18th century. Before the 18th century come along in the time of what we call the Enlightenment, people had to get up in the morning at daylight and work till they couldn't see any longer just to survive. Well, things got a little easier as we moved into the mechanical age of mechanisms. And people weren't having to work as long or as hard. And we come into the Industrial Revolution, where people were working jobs, but yet they did have, after a while, of course, time for other things. Now, boredom is epic among our children, and I hear so many of our young people say, well, I'm just so bored. And a lot of that gets back to the idea that, and I will talk a little bit more about this in a moment, but their world is so fast-paced, and it's a world that is more here, in front of them, right here. And it's because of everything that's come along. Now, labor-saving devices are great. But also with labor-saving devices, it has ushered in this idea of boredom, where maybe before the 1800s, the privileged class might not have as much to do during the day as everyone else. The thing about it is, and sadly, is boredom can be traced to a lack of faith in God. It is a consciousness, a barrier, meaningless existence. If we have faith in God, our life will have meaning. Because we've got something to hold on to. We've got something to reach out and grasp. We have a purpose every day that we get up. And it is not that preoccupation with self, but it is a preoccupation with knowing that we have things to do every day. for God. Boredom is what happens when we lose contact with the universe. It's when people are bored, it is primarily their own selves. Now, when I wake up in the mornings, there's something that I have to accomplish every day in my life. But sadly, there are people who get up in the mornings and they have nothing. There's nothing there. Sometimes it boils down to not having a job that's challenging. Sometimes I wonder what it would be like just to have one job. You know, I get up on Monday mornings. Now, if the Lord's willing, this afternoon I will download the videos from today. This morning. I'll do that this afternoon. And if Linda doesn't let me take my nap, I can start editing some of those things. Now, if she lets me take my nap, they might not get edited till tonight sometime. But on Monday mornings, I have it in my schedule to start uploading videos because it takes hours. So I have a challenging in the things that I do. And a lot of times I will be uploading our videos. I'll be working on a Wednesday night's lesson. And then I will get to the point that I need to go outside. So I'll go check on the pigs, or I'll go to the shop, or I'll do this or that or whatever else needs to be done. We need to make our jobs challenging. Another thing is unfulfilled expectations. What do I expect from my life, from what I'm doing? Also, a lack of physical activity. We need to get up and get around. It's so easy. It's so easy to get up in the morning and just, I don't want to do much, and there's not much to do, and go in. And I tell you what, I can sit in my chair and I can mess around on my computer. I can watch TV all day long. But it's bad. It's hard on me. That was one of the blessings whenever we got the pigs. I have to get up every morning, go out and feed. Linda goes with me. And every evening you got to go out there and feed. And every so often you got to go check on them. Physical activity is a good thing. Maybe some of you I know take your dogs for a walk. Talked to a lady the other day, and she had her watch, and she was showing it to us, and she had done 2.5 miles that morning, and I'm guessing probably a little older than me. Well, yeah, a little older than I am. And then she had a whole day full of work that she had to do. And I was looking at mine, and I said, well, I've been down to feed this morning. And that's it. That's as far as I've been. But physical activity. Also being too much a spectator and too little a participant. We live in a spectator world. But we need to get out and be involved. And it's real easy for me to say, well, I don't have time for this, or I can't do that. But to get out and get involved. Don't be a spectator. I'm not a big person on watching spectator things. I like to be involved. Some people are just the opposite. And they struggle with that. When a Christian is struggling, we need to turn to God. When listlessness and discontent, we are susceptible to what promises excitement. One writer put it like this, and I quote, boredom has made more gamblers than greed, more drunkards than thirst, and perhaps many suicides of despair. Another said, Boredom is often the motivation for adultery, divorce, abuse of alcohol or drugs, and even suicide. Another said boredom is the vital problem for the moralists, since at least half the sins of mankind are caused by the fear of it. When a Christian is bored, they need to look at their service to God, because there's a lot to do for God in this world. There's a lot of folks out there that need the gospel. There's a lot of folks that need to hear that precious message. And if we are those who are desirous to be useful for the Lord, I guarantee you will not be bored. There's always a soul out there that needs you. In whatever aspect it may be, from the sharing of the gospel to assisting them in the difficulties that they are facing. You know, boredom is called, or has been called, a chronic symptom of a pleasure-obsessed society. And sadly, our society has come to the point in its creation that people don't have what they need. And I notice, even as an adult myself, do you know how easy it is to sit down there and to get your iPad out and to play games? Now, I cannot play the games that these little guys back here can play. Can't do that. They blow my mind. But I can play solitaire on my iPad. And I can spend hours doing it. Or I can get on Facebook. I can get on YouTube and spend hours watching videos. And that's what a lot of people do these days. And they wonder why they struggle with depression. And our children. You know, I remember back in my day, Saturday morning cartoons. The day we had to sleep in. Can you believe this? The day we had to sleep in, we got up at probably 7 o'clock, because I think they came on at 7 o'clock to watch Saturday morning cartoons. We were glued to that TV. But the thing about it was, in my day, about noonish, something else come on. Well, what did we do? We weren't bored. We had things to do. And 90% of the time, we were outside making our parents crazy by running up and down the road. Off out doing things as young people should do. Today, sadly, our young people, they don't ever get out of the house. They sit there on their screens and they communicate on their screens. They play games on their screens. That's their life. And they wonder what the problem is. They don't interact with the world except through those medium. And I'm going to be honest. Adults are just as bad. Yeah. How many of y'all ever caught yourself? You go someplace and you sit down and maybe you're going to eat at a cafe. And here you are. Let's see here. I wonder what's on Facebook. Instead of visiting, instead of seeing people around you, anybody ever do that? Guilty. I'm guilty. So I'm not going to say that I don't do these silly things. I do it too. I'll get that phone out and I'll go to doing that Facebook thing or whatever. And there's nothing wrong with those tools. It's just that we don't use them appropriately. And especially when we denote the idea that we are bored. So overcoming boredom is through faith in Jesus Christ. we have to have our focus where it needs to be in life, and that focus is Jesus. You know, Jesus teaches us to deny ourselves. In Luke chapter 9 and verse 23 it says, "And he was saying to them all, if anyone wishes to come after me, he must deny himself and take up his cross daily and follow him, and follow me. For whoever wishes to save his life will lose it. But whoever loses his life for my sake, he is the one who will save it." People who are obsessed with self are not happy. We need to lose self and replace that by Jesus and our service to God. And we need to also change the object of our affections. What's important to us? In the Gospel of Matthew, the 6th chapter, beginning verse 19, it says, "Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and rust destroys, and where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust destroys, and where thieves do not break in or steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." Where is the treasure? What's important to you? The pleasure of earthly things, or keeping our focus on Jesus? You know, it is in the teaching of Jesus that we get the joy that comes in life. In John chapter 15 and verse 9, Jesus says, "Just as the Father has loved me, I have also loved you. Abide in my love. If you keep my commandments, you will abide in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commandments and abide in his love. These things I have spoken to you, so that my joy may be in you, and that your joy may be made full." I guarantee you, if we're working for God, if our focus is Jesus, it's a joyful thing. And anyone that tells you that being a child of God is not joyful, they're wrong. That's just how simple it is. They're wrong. Living a worldly, boring life, that's not joy. Utilizing some kind of stimulant to make life, whatever it be, to think you're having joy in life does not bring fulfillment or joy. But in God, it does. And that is why Jesus enlists us in service, that we might be truly satisfied. You know, many people are bored because they know their efforts mean very little. But dear friends, if we are in the service of God, the things that we are doing is having eternal consequences for us and for those out there in the world. In the Gospel of Mark, the 16th chapter and verse 15, it says, "And he said to them, go into all the world and preach the gospel to all creation." He's not just talking to the disciples there, the apostles. He's speaking to us. And if we're out there sharing that precious message, the gospel, we're not going to be bored. Because it denotes the reality there in verse 16. "He who has believed and has been baptized shall be saved, but he who has disbelieved shall be condemned." It's a soul. It's helping a soul find Jesus. That's what we're about. And if we're helping souls find Jesus, we're not going to be bored. In the 16th chapter of the book of Matthew, going down to verse 26, Jesus asks us what's more important, the world or a soul? He says, "For what does it profit a man if he gains the whole world and forfeits his soul? Or what will a man give in exchange for his soul? And you know, sadly, a lot of people sell their souls to the devil for worldly things. And they're not happy. And they're bored. When if we focus on Jesus, we gain the whole world. And we gain eternity. We have it all. The apostles found their service to God to be a source of great joy. John writes in 3 John 3, "For I was very glad when brethren came and testified to your truth, that is, how you are walking in truth. I have no greater joy than this, to hear that my children walking in the truth." His efforts had been good. It produced fruit. In 1 Thessalonians chapter 2 and verse 19. It says, "For who is our hope or joy or crown of exaltation? Is it not even you, in the presence of our Lord Jesus at his coming? For you are our glory and joy." Dear friends, there's nothing better than to run across and to see faithful people that you have had opportunity to help along the way to find God's truth. When one is engaged in the work of Jesus, their labors are never in vain. And they have not only cosmic, but eternal consequences. And that's a reality. In Ephesians 6 and verse 12 it says, "For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the powers, against the world forces of darkness, against the spiritual forces of wickedness in the heavenly places." Satan is the one that's out there. And it is he and his minion, those who follow him. And there's a lot of people that follow him, who has structured society today to take away all of these things from people and to make people bored. To make people bored. You know, life is a blessing if we have our focus where it needs to be. If we make the changes that we need to make, if we see the need to make those changes, then boredom is gone. You know, I was always taught that you are to sit down the first of the year and to make out a list of all the things you need to do this year. And then every month you sit down and what am I going to do this month? And then what am I going to do this week? And then what am I going to do this day? And you know, I tried that. I really did. I worked real hard about having a schedule like that. There was only a problem. Is that every 15 minutes my schedule changes. And you have to learn that, yes, I have things to do. I have a schedule. There are things that I like to do on Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, Saturdays, Sundays, but it's all adjustable. But I still have things to do. And not allow Satan to creep in and take all those things away that makes my life what it is. So, when we say, well, I'm bored, then what you need to do is find out what you can do. And if our focus is on Jesus, there's plenty to do. We are a blessed people. And I enjoy the things that we have in this world that makes it easier to live in this world. I like those things. But I'm not going to let those things dictate my life. And let us always keep in prayer those who are struggling with boredom to the point that it is degenerative or destructive. And that's a reality. And that's where we reach out with love, compassion, and kindness and help those individuals out of that situation. Dear friends, if you're not a child of God here this morning, I encourage you. Put on your Lord and Savior in baptism. Be raised up to walk in that newness of life. And if there is any other need on your heart that we can assist with, let us do so. Come now, as together we stand and as we sing.